welcome back to Prime Wealth. We're so glad you could join us today.
Yeah, welcome. It's great to have you here.
So today we're diving into a topic that can really hit home for a lot of us, right? It's all about tackling debt.
Exactly, and specifically we're going to compare two popular methods, the Debt Snowball and the Debt Avalanche.
Right. I know many of you might be wondering which one actually pays off debt faster.
That's a common question, and it really depends on your personal situation.
Totally. So in this episode, we'll break down how each method works and the pros and cons of both.
Plus, we'll share some tips on how to decide which approach might be best for you.
Yeah, and of course, we'll sprinkle in some real-life examples to make it all relatable.
Definitely. It's about finding what works for you, you know?
Exactly. So if you're feeling overwhelmed with debt or just curious about these strategies, stay tuned.
We're here to guide you through it.
All right, let's jump right in. So first up, Alex, can you explain how the Debt Snowball method works? So Alex, today we're diving into something that I think a lot of folks over 40 are really grappling with, and that's debt. Specifically the Debt Snowball versus the Debt Avalanche methods.
Yeah, absolutely, Jordan. It's a big topic, and it's super relevant right now. You know, many people in their 40s and 50s are facing unique financial pressures, like supporting kids, planning for retirement, or maybe even caring for aging parents.
Right. And that can make managing debt feel even more overwhelming. I mean, I read somewhere that nearly 80% of Americans carry some kind of debt. That's a staggering statistic, isn't it?
It really is. And it's not just credit cards. People are also dealing with student loans, car payments, maybe even mortgages that feel a bit burdensome.
Yeah, and for folks over 40, it's like time is of the essence. They're often thinking, I need to get this sorted out before retirement hits.
Exactly. And, you know, there's often this emotional weight that comes with debt, especially when you've been carrying it for years. It can feel like a cloud hanging over you, impacting not just finances, but your overall well-being.
For sure. I mean, I've spoken to friends who say they can't fully enjoy their lives because they're always worried about their debt. They say, I can't take that trip, or I can't invest in that hobby because they feel trapped.
That's a common feeling, and it's tough. But it's also a motivator to figure out which debt repayment method is going to work best for them.
Right. So let's break it down a bit. The Debt Snowball method, focuses on paying off the smallest debts first, right?
Yes, that's it. The idea is to gain momentum. You pay off those smaller debts quickly, which can provide some psychological wins.
And I get that. Seeing those small victories can really boost motivation.
Exactly. For example, let's say someone has a credit card with a balance of $500 and another one with $3,000. If they knock out that $500 first, they might feel like, wow, I'm making progress.
Right, and that feeling can push them to tackle the next one. But then there's the avalanche method.
Yeah, the avalanche focuses on interest rates, so you pay off the debt with the highest interest first.
Which, in theory, can save you more money in the long run, right?
Yes, it's more cost-effective. If you're paying high interest on something, like a credit card, knocking that out first can really reduce the total amount you'll pay over time.
So, if we take that same example, the $3,000 card might have a really high interest rate compared to the smaller one.
Exactly. So even if it takes longer to pay off that larger debt, you're saving more in interest. It's all about what's going to work best for you, financially and emotionally.
And that's key, right? It depends on the person. Some might find the snowball method more motivating, while others would want to go for the avalanche to save on interest.
Yes, and it's important to think about your own financial situation. You know, I've had clients in their 40s who were feeling overwhelmed with multiple debts, and they didn't know where to start.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. It must be so daunting.
It really can be. I remember this one client, let's call her Sarah. She was juggling a car loan, credit card debt, and some medical bills. She was stressed, and it was affecting her sleep and even her relationships.
That sounds tough.
Yeah, it was, but once we sat down and mapped out her debts using the snowball method, she was able to pay off that car loan first. And you could see the relief on her face.
That's so powerful. Just that initial win can change everything.
It really can. And then, when she saw progress, it motivated her to tackle the other debts, too.
And what about the avalanche? Do you have a story there?
Sure. I worked with a couple, let's call them Tom and Lisa. They had a mix of debts, but their credit card debt had really high interest rates. They decided to go the Avalanche route and focused on knocking that down first.
Did it work for them?
It did. They saved a significant amount in interest, which was a big win for their long-term financial health. They were able to redirect those savings into retirement accounts later on.
That's amazing. So it's really about choosing the right method for your own situation.
Exactly. And for those over 40, it's not just about numbers. It's about finding peace of mind, reducing stress, and moving toward financial goals that matter.
I love that perspective. It's so important to remember that financial health is tied to emotional well-being.
Absolutely. And with the right strategy, whether it's Snowball or Avalanche, people can regain control over their finances. And that feeling can be life-changing.
So as we wrap up this section, it's clear that understanding these methods is crucial, especially for our listeners in this life stage.
Yes, and I encourage everyone to take a closer look at their own situation. It might be time to rethink how you're tackling debt, and that can really set the stage for what's next.
Exactly. And with that, let's dive into some core strategies for implementing these methods effectively. So Alex, today we're diving into two popular methods for paying off debt, the Debt Snowball and the Debt Avalanche. And I think a lot of people listening might be wondering, which one's actually better for me?
Yeah, absolutely, Jordan. It's such an important topic, and the good news is that both methods can lead to being debt-free. It's just about finding the right fit for your situation.
Right, so let's break them down a bit. I think many people have heard of the Debt Snowball method, but can you give us a quick overview of how it works?
Sure. The Debt Snowball method is all about motivation and psychology. You start by listing your debts from the smallest to the largest, and then you focus on paying off the smallest one first while making minimum payments on the others. Once that first debt is gone, you take that payment and roll it into the next smallest debt, creating a snowball effect.
That makes sense. So it's like getting quick wins to keep you motivated, huh?
Exactly. You know, it feels good to pay something off, even if it's just a small debt. And that sense of accomplishment can really boost your morale.
And what about the avalanche method? How does that one work?
The avalanche method takes a different approach. You list your debts by interest rate, from highest to lowest, and you focus on paying off the one with the highest interest first. This way, you save more on interest payments over time.
I see. So it's more about the numbers and less about the quick wins, right?
Yes, that's a good way to put it. With the avalanche method, you might not get those immediate wins like with the snowball. But in the long run, you could save more money because you're tackling the debts that cost you more in interest.
So if someone is more motivated by seeing progress quickly, they might lean toward the snowball method. But if they're more focused on saving money, the avalanche might be the better choice.
You've got it. It really comes down to personal preference and what drives you. And sometimes it can even depend on your specific situation.
Right, like if you have a small debt that's bothering you, paying it off quickly could give you the peace of mind you need to tackle the bigger debts.
Exactly, and that's why I always encourage people to think about their own behavior. If you know you'll get discouraged by long payoff timelines, the snowball might be the way to go.
Okay, so let's say someone decides to go with the snowball method. What are some practical steps they should take to get started?
Good question. First, you'd want to list all your debts, including the total amount owed, the minimum payments, and the interest rates. Then arrange them from smallest to largest.
And then what?
Next, focus all your extra money, whatever you can spare, on the smallest debt, while continuing to make the minimum payments on the others. Once that small debt is gone, you take that payment and apply it to the next smallest debt.
Got it. And what if someone decides on the avalanche method instead?
For the avalanche, you'd follow a similar process, but list your debts by interest rates. Then, focus on paying off the highest interest debt first, while making minimum payments on the rest.
So in both methods, it's crucial to keep making those minimum payments on the other debts, right?
Absolutely. Missing payments can hurt your credit score. And trust me, you don't want to add additional stress to your financial situation.
So what tools or habits can help someone stay on track with either method?
Well, I always recommend creating a budget and sticking to it. There are also apps that can help you track your debts. like Mint or YNAB. Setting up automatic payments for your minimums can also help you stay on track.
Oh yeah, and maybe having a separate savings account for an emergency fund so you're not tempted to dip into your debt repayment funds, right?
Exactly. Having that cushion can prevent you from taking on more debt when unexpected expenses pop up, and it keeps you focused on your repayment plan.
That's really helpful. So, just to recap, if someone is more driven by quick wins, they might go for the snowball method. But if they're looking to save on interest, the avalanche method could be best.
Yep, that's the gist of it. And remember, the key is to stay committed and not get discouraged, because paying down debt is a journey, not a sprint.
Totally agree. And I know we're just scratching the surface here. What are some common pitfalls people might face when trying to pay off debt?
Oh, there are a few, for sure. One big one is getting discouraged if progress feels slow, or conversely, if you pick the method that doesn't align with your personality, you could lose motivation.
That's a good point. And what about unexpected expenses?
Right. It's easy to get thrown off track when life happens. If you don't have a plan in place for those surprises, it can be really discouraging.
So it's about being prepared and flexible then.
Exactly. And always remember, it's okay to reassess your strategy if you find one method isn't working for you.
Great advice, Alex. I think that's a solid place to wrap up today's discussion. Thanks for breaking this down for us.
My pleasure, Jordan. It's always great to help people find their path to financial freedom.
So, Alex, we've talked about the debt snowball and avalanche methods, but I think it's super important to dive into some of the common pitfalls people face when they're trying to tackle their debt.
Absolutely, Jordan. You know, one of the biggest mistakes I see is people getting really excited about paying off their debt, and then they jump in without a solid plan.
Right. It's like you get all fired up and then, what? You end up feeling overwhelmed because you didn't think it through?
Exactly. Like, let's say someone decides to go all in on the snowball method. They start with the smallest debt, which is great, but then they neglect their bigger debts that might have higher interest rates.
Oh yeah, that can really backfire. I mean, you might feel great paying off that small loan, but if you're not tackling those high interest debts, you're just losing money in the long run, right?
Yes, and that's a classic example. It feels good to cross something off your list, but it can lead to more debt accumulating.
So what are some signs someone might be falling into that trap?
Well, one red flag is if they notice their total debt isn't really budging, even after making payments. They might be paying off smaller debts, but if the bigger ones are still hanging around, that's a warning sign.
Yeah, and I think another common mistake is not keeping track of the interest rates. People might think, oh, I'll just pay off this one first because it's easier. But then they miss out on saving money overall.
Exactly. A real-life example I can share. I had a client who focused solely on a credit card with a $500 balance, while ignoring a larger one with a $5,000 balance at a much higher interest rate.
Wow, that must have been frustrating for them.
It was, because once we looked at the numbers, they realized they were paying way more in interest on that larger debt. They thought they were making progress. But, it was just an illusion.
So, the key takeaway here is to really understand the interest rates on your debts before deciding which one to tackle first.
Yes, and also to create a budget that includes all your debts. That way you can see the full picture, where your money is going.
And speaking of budgets, I think sometimes people get so focused on the debt repayment, they forget about their everyday expenses.
Right, a classic pitfall. They might cut out all their small pleasures, like coffee runs or dining out, thinking that'll help them pay off their debt faster. But then they feel deprived.
And that can lead to burnout, right? Like, if you feel like you're missing out on life, you might just go back to your old habits.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. You can still enjoy life while paying off debt. Just be mindful of your spending.
So would you say it's important to have those mini celebrations too? Like, treat yourself occasionally when you hit a milestone?
Absolutely. Celebrating those small wins can keep you motivated. Just make sure those celebrations fit into your budget.
Right. And I guess that leads to another common mistake, not having a contingency plan. Life happens and unexpected expenses can pop up.
Yes. If someone is putting every single dollar towards debt repayment and then an emergency arises, like a car repair or medical bill, they can end up right back in debt.
That's such a good point. It's like a house of cards. One little thing can take it all down if you're not prepared.
Exactly. So building an emergency fund, even if it's just a small one at first, can help cushion those unexpected expenses.
And I think it's also important to recognize when you might need help. Sometimes people feel embarrassed or ashamed about their debt, and they try to tackle it all alone.
Yes, that's a common danger sign. If someone feels overwhelmed or confused by their debt situation, it's completely okay to seek help.
Absolutely. There's no shame in asking for guidance, especially when it comes to money. It can be complicated.
And sometimes just talking to a financial advisor can provide clarity. We can help create a tailored plan that fits their lifestyle and goals.
So, what would you recommend as the next steps for someone who realizes they might be making these common mistakes?
First, I'd say take a step back and assess your current situation. Write out all your debts, their interest rates, and your monthly payments.
Right, and then create a budget that includes both your debt repayment and an emergency fund, even if it's just a little bit each month.
Yes! And then, based on that budget, decide on a debt repayment strategy that makes the most sense for you, whether it's the snowball or the avalanche method.
And don't forget to reward yourself for the small wins along the way. It can really keep you motivated.
Exactly, Jordan. And if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, remember, reaching out for help is a smart move, not a weak one.
Well said. I think it's all about taking those small, consistent steps toward financial freedom. And it really is possible.
Definitely. Just be patient with yourself. This is a journey, and every step counts.
Thanks for sharing all this valuable insight, Alex. I think our listeners will really benefit from being aware of these pitfalls.
My pleasure, Jordan. I'm here to help anytime.
So, Alex, now that we've talked about the debt snowball and avalanche methods, let's dive into some immediate steps our listeners can take to start making progress on their debt, right?
Absolutely, Jordan. It's all about taking those first steps. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. So what's the first thing someone should do if they want to tackle their debt?
Well, I'd say the first step is to get a clear picture of your debts. You want to list them out, Include the balance, interest rates, and minimum payments.
Right, like a little debt inventory, huh?
Exactly. And then, from there, you can decide which method to use, snowball or avalanche.
And I think a lot of people might feel a bit stuck here. What's a good way to actually start?
I'd suggest picking one small debt to focus on first. If you're using the snowball method, it's motivating to tackle that smaller debt. It gives you a quick win.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like gaining momentum, right?
Exactly. And if you're going the avalanche route, start with a debt that has the highest interest rate. Either way, it's about choosing something manageable to begin with.
So once they've picked a debt, what's next?
Next, it's about creating a budget. You want to find ways to free up some extra cash, even if it's just a little bit.
Right, like cutting out some subscriptions, or maybe cooking at home more often.
Yes, those small changes can add up. And once you have that extra cash, you can put it toward your chosen debt.
That's a great tip. And what tools can people use to help with budgeting?
There are some really handy apps out there. I'd recommend checking out something like Mint or YNAB. You Need a Budget. They're both user-friendly and help you track expenses.
Oh, I love YNAB. It really helps you see where your money's going.
Exactly, and it encourages you to allocate every dollar, which can be super empowering.
So what about tracking debt progress? Any tools for that?
Sure. You could use a simple spreadsheet or apps like undebt.it or Debt Payoff Planner. They let you input your debts and track your progress over time.
That sounds really satisfying, actually, seeing those balances go down.
It is. And, celebrating those milestones, even the small ones, can really keep you motivated. Maybe treat yourself to something simple when you pay off a debt.
Oh, for sure. It's like giving yourself a pat on the back, right?
Yeah, and it reinforces positive habits. Speaking of habits, what are some daily practices people can build to stay focused on their debt payoff?
Maybe setting aside a specific time each week to review finances?
Definitely. Regular check-ins can help you stay accountable. And I'd also suggest automating payments if possible.
Oh, that's smart. Automation really takes away the stress of remembering due dates.
Right, and it helps prevent late fees, which can really add up over time.
So true. And I think it also gives you a sense of control, knowing that your payments are being handled.
Exactly. And, another habit to build is to find ways to increase your income. Maybe consider a side gig or selling things you no longer need.
Yeah, decluttering can be a win-win. Plus, it can bring in some extra cash to put toward debts.
Absolutely. And don't forget to look for opportunities to learn more about personal finance.
Oh, like reading books or listening to podcasts, right?
Yes, there are so many great resources out there. I love the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, for instance. It's got solid, practical advice.
That's a classic. And I think just surrounding yourself with positive financial content can really shift your mindset.
For sure. Creating that supportive environment makes a huge difference. And, connecting with others on the same journey can be really helpful too.
Like finding a community or even a friend to share goals with?
Exactly. Accountability partners can keep you motivated. You can share tips, celebrate wins, or just talk through the tough times.
That's such a great idea. And it doesn't have to be a huge group. Even just one other person can make a difference.
Right. It's all about support. And one last thing I'd recommend. Don't be too hard on yourself if progress feels slow.
Yeah, it's a journey, not a sprint, right?
Exactly. Just stay committed to your plan, and you'll see results over time.
So to wrap it up, we've talked about getting organized with your debt, choosing a method, setting a budget, using some great tools,
and building positive habits to stay on track. It really is about taking those small steps consistently.
I love that. All right, everyone, let's take those next steps together. Remember, no step is too small when it comes to improving your financial future.
Absolutely. And we're here to support you through it all.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Prime Wealth. Wow, Alex, that was a really insightful discussion. I think we covered some crucial points about debt repayment strategies.
Absolutely, Jordan. So let's recap the key takeaways, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. First, we talked about the Debt Snowball method. Focusing on paying off the smallest debts first to build momentum, right?
Right. It's all about that psychological boost. When you knock out a small debt, it feels great and keeps you motivated.
Exactly. And then there's the Debt Avalanche method, which targets the highest interest rates first, that can save you money in the long run.
Yeah, it's a more mathematical approach, but it can be tough if you're not seeing quick wins.
Right, so it really depends on what motivates you personally.
And remember, it's also important to create a budget and find ways to cut unnecessary expenses to free up more cash for debt repayment.
Definitely. And don't forget about the emotional aspect. It's okay to ask for help, whether it's from a financial advisor or a supportive friend.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you and sticking with it. And that's what really leads to financial freedom.
So, before we wrap up, we want to encourage everyone listening. If you found this episode helpful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.
And if you know someone who's over 40 and could benefit from this advice, please share it with them.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And next time, we'll be diving into a really important topic, how to build credit from scratch.
That's right. So be sure to tune in for that.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.